For Britain, there's Liz McColgan, the Scot, who's run 2 marathons and won 2. For Australia, Lisa Ondieki, twice Commonwealth champion and a marathon winner 8 times. For Germany, Katrin Dorrer, the defending champion, with 15 marathon wins. And there's Andrea Wallace for Great Britain, who was 3rd last year. In the wheelchair event, Tanny Gray defends the title. And joining the commentary team, Chris Hallam, twice a London winner, but who's impatient for his broken leg to mend. Salah of Djibouti, the 2nd fastest man in history, tops the entry in the men's race. Nali of Tanzania was the pacemaker last year, but still finished 3rd. Paul Evans of Belgrave was the leading Briton, went 5th in 92, and he goes again. And Eamon Martin, the British 10,000 metres champion, appears for the first time ever in a marathon. The London Marathon this year is sponsored by NutraSweet, and the elite will lead runners of so many different standards. Many seeking personal best times, so many others fundraising, and more than 60 different charities will benefit from this 1993 run. More and more seem to be taking part in fancy dress, but whatever their ambitions, the challenge is to finish. Let's meet one or two with Hazel Irvine.
Well, guess who I found in the warm-up area? HRH Prince Charles. Are you looking forward to the marathon, sir?
Really looking forward to doing it, yes, I am.
Well, it's not a bad impersonation, but I think you should perhaps reveal the truth. You are, in fact, sir, topless Ted
Collins.
Now,
Yes.
Ted, you're actually legendary for running this marathon without any shirt on.
Any shirt, yes.
But is that
yes.
going to be the case today?
No, run like this. Keep this all on.
A bit too cold
I'm
for
going
you.
to be Prince Giles.
Now, it's a very strange attire because you're actually on the bottom half wearing a kilt.
Yes.
Something tells me you're not a true Scotsman, though. Is that correct?
No, I'm a West Sussex man.
And would you like to prove it?
Prove it.
Well, let's see what's under the kilt. Definitely not a Scotsman. Mandy, how is Ollie behaving himself? He looks okay to start.
He's a bit excited. He wants to get going now.
Okay, and what kind of time do you think he's capable of today?
Well, hopefully between 5 and 6 hours. But we'd just like to get to the finish.
Seriously though, is this not an awful burden to be running around with?
Well, it's not too bad for the ostrich, you know. It's
Just
these
you.
legs,
Well,
yeah.
at least you're getting a
They're
free
bit
ride today,
bad,
Mandy.
Yeah, thank you.
All the best with it.
Well, the elite women's race will start in a few minutes at 9:05, the wheelchair event at 9:20, and the elite men and the multitude at 9:30. Indeed, there are so many runners, there'll be 3 different starting points. The elite on the blue start, the main body of the field on the red start, and the women over 60s and the men over 65 on the green start. They will merge eventually, and all will run the same distance, 26 miles, 385 yards, taking in so many of London's famous tourist sites. At 3 miles, the Woolwich Barracks of the Royal Artillery, the longest Georgian facade in Europe. Between 6 and 7 miles of the stately lines of the Cutty Sark, the tea clipper that broke the record from Australia to London over 100 years ago. At 12 miles, Tower Bridge. At 15, out to the Isle of Dogs, the changing face of Docklands, dominated by Canary Wharf, towering some 800 feet above the runners. St Catherine's Dock is the 22-mile marker leading to the Tower of London, where the yeoman warders will be in duty as usual today. Just after 24 miles, the runners reach the heart of London, the edge of Trafalgar Square and Nelson, through Admiralty Arch, and halfway along the Mall, the 25-mile point, just over a mile to go. At Buckingham Palace, some will pause to bow, but not the leaders. And those keeping an eye on the clock, when they see Big Ben, well, they'll know they're only yards from the finish across Westminster Bridge. The London event is unique as the highest proportion of finishers of any marathon in the world. How welcome the sight of that finish must be for so many thousands, the realization of a long-held ambition. Well, the starter today will be Sir Ralph Fiennes, whose own endurance and mental and physical discipline on his recent polo trek will strike a chord with the marathon men and women of today. He's now talking to Hazel Irvine.
So Ranulph, you're going to be starting the London Marathon. What does that mean to you today?
Well, it gives me a chance to see close up a hell of a lot of good people, and 25,000 people. 30% won't finish in any 1 year, but they're all having a go. And I like the way that this NutraSweet London Marathon gives a winner's gong to everybody that finishes, because you are a winner if you finish over a course like this. I think the weather's very good at the moment, because heat is the great enemy, and it's a pretty cool breeze. I think it's perfect conditions.
It took you 95 days to cross Antarctica. Some of these runners will make it in around 5 hours. Would you swap?
No, I wouldn't. We were using enough energy every day for 97 days without a break to have run more than a marathon every day for 97 days. But we lost a lot and we were crippled at the end of it all. So these people, I hope, will not be crippled, except some of the ones, 60, 70 years old. I don't know how they do it.
Fiennes will start the elite races. Big Ben showing just seconds after 9 o'clock, and the elite women's race will start at 5 minutes past 9. They're getting ready down there. The two main contenders, according to form, Eliza Ondieki, the Australian who now lives in Kenya, and Liz McColgan, who we'll hear from first.
Well, the way I see it, there is a rivalry because, I'm racing against her, but it's not a love-hate thing. It's definitely not a hate thing. I know that Lisa's went on record as saying, I'm very arrogant or whatever, but I just think that she's actually been at the wrong end of the stick, really. She's a bit highly strung and gets a little bit, tense about her running, and I think she's just really took a couple of things that I've said to heart, which I really think she shouldn't have. I think she should have just let it brush off her shoulder.
Well, that's Liz, true to form. I've been exposed to her comments enough to be immune to them. And if she said anything different, if she showed any other athlete any sort of respect, I'd wonder what was going on. So I think, she just really has a lack of respect for other people in the sport, and it's just typical Liz.
So the countdown now on. Just over 3 minutes to the start. But although most of the publicity has surrounded Eliza Ondieki and Liz McColgan, don't forget Catherine Dorrer, the German who won it 12 months ago, and what a record she's got. When you look back over the years, she's now 32. She's run in 24 marathons and won 15, Brendan Foster.
And there's the Olympic bronze medalist, who's another threat. That's Lorraine Muller of New Zealand, who ran a marvellous race in Barcelona in the most difficult marathon conditions anybody's ever seen. They're number 104 in the blue and black strip, an unusual garment that she's wearing today, Liz McColgan, but she's doing her usual. She's not communicating with anyone. And there's the great rival, Lisa Ondigi, the Australian, who, as you said, David, has won a few of her top marathons. She was very disappointed with her performance in the Olympic Games, but she's really determined, and she's been wound up all week by the press speculation about her rivalry with Liz McColgan, and there's a rare smile at the start of a marathon by Lisa Ondigi.
Lisa is married to Yobis Ondieki, the Kenyan middle distance runner, one of the finest in the world. Liz McColgan with a new hairstyle. Actually running in conjunction with the international race. There's the Women's 3A's Championship, the national title. 90 seconds to go before the start.
Nervous anticipation there, and it's very rare in international sport that the women's section of an international event like this takes all the publicity, takes all the headlines. And when you think women's distance running has only really been in existence for 21 years, they've come an awful long way. They're running on their own, and they'll bring London to a standstill, and it's a great step forward for female sport, female distance running, and you couldn't have a finer field, and you couldn't have a finer battle in prospect than the one we're going to see today.
And the women's race starting 5 minutes earlier than 12 months ago, when you may remember the leading men caught the second place athlete in the women's race, who's also running today, by the way, Kakowska of Poland. Must be left out of the reckoning. There's no prospect. The organisers, ourselves, hope as well, of the men catching the women, who've been given that extra 5 minutes. Ronald Fines. And the countdown now in the final 10 seconds. McColgan straight away where she wants to be. She loves to lead. And it's a beautiful start, in fact. It's the first 6-7 miles gently sloping away. These are on the Iki right up there alongside Liz McColgan. Dora, the German, coming across to join them. Andrea Wallace in the dark kit on the outside, tracking Liz McColgan. Comes from Torbay Athletic Club, lives in Torquay. Kakowska of Poland, 105. And this start is so inviting, Brendan Foster, with good road service and gently going away. Could push you too hard.
I think that's right. I think the first few miles are very important that one controls oneself, and that it must be a pleasure for the women to start there without the masses around them and just get themselves going and get themselves underway. We have the elite athletes right at the front, then we have the club runners and the serious county class runners, and there'll be an awful lot of miles will have been run in preparation for this particular race. They've been training for many, many months through the hard winter months to get ready for the London Marathon. And when you look at the overall average times and you look at the times that they run, there's an awful lot of women running under 3 hours for a marathon, and there's some interloper just in the wrong start, in the wrong race. But I was very interested to watch Liz McColgan at the start, because I remember talking to her after Barcelona when I told her that I thought she was a bit relaxed on the start line when she shook hands with people and smiled at one or two others. And she said, I knew then. And I said, well, I thought then that you weren't going to run a great race. And she said, well, when you see me smiling and shaking hands, you know I haven't got my mind completely on the job. So I watched her today. She didn't shake hands with anyone. She didn't smile particularly at anyone. She didn't break her concentration at all. And I think that suggests to me that she's totally focused on this race. She'll have to be, because it's going to be a very, very tough race. But I think she's got her mind in gear, And I think we're going to see a great race from Liz McColgan. And looking at Lisa Ondigi in the lead, she doesn't mind that. She's not bothered. If you remember the Commonwealth Games in 1990, she led every single inch of that 26 miles, 385 yards, when she won the Commonwealth Games in Auckland back in 1990. So she doesn't mind being a little bit ahead of the field. She doesn't mind having Liz McColgan track her. She's a very experienced marathon runner, and she's here to prove a very, very important psychological point. She resents the fact that Liz McColgan, she feels, doesn't show enough respect to herself and some of the other marathon runners. I think that's sometimes a result of what's press speculation, really, rather than direct communication. But in the marathon, you've got to respect your rivals, and more important than that, you've got to respect the distance.
We've got the big names up front already breaking away. Ondigi leading, McColgan in second place, Wallace is third, Dora is fourth, Kokoska's up there as well of Poland, and Lorraine Moller in sixth place of New Zealand. Actually, Lisa Ondigi wearing those gloves. Remember Christensen, who set the world best on this course, just over 2 minutes, 2 hours and 21 minutes. She always wore gloves.
That's right. Now we always used to think that it was to keep our hands warm because you should wear gloves on hot days, but actually it was to wipe the sweat out of her eyes. I think that was quite a convenient thing. But Lisa Ondigi lives in Flagstaff, Arizona. The temperature there is a lot warmer than it is here, and I think she's wearing the gloves to keep her warm. But I can sense already that they're going a bit of a lick. They're not taking it easy. Lisa Ondigi said, hey, you know, if it's 26 miles, we're going to race for 26 miles, and you're not going to have the first bit easy. You're not going to have any part of it easy. And you can see Liz McColgan has decided that she wants to get alongside Ondigi, let her know she's there. And Andrea Wallace in third place, who finished third in the race last year, and she said she was disappointed with that performance, feels she's a lot better runner this year. And she's had her gloves, she's had enough of her gloves, and that's it, she'll never find them again.
Actually, the mile markers, and they're approaching the completion of the first mile, they're highlighted by those arches of balloons. So we'll try and freeze the clock as they go through the mile. And it's pretty quick. Anything inside 5:20. .5:16 at the mile, Brendan.
Well, I could sense that Lisa Ondigi meant business right from the beginning. But the first mile is a gently sloping mile, and it's not, you know, one shouldn't read too much into that time. But Lisa Ondigi means business. You can tell that. And already in the first mile of the race, she's doing what she wants to do. And Liz McColgan must be thinking, you know, why is she doing it like this? Why is she making the first mile as quick as this? And what am I going to do? I'm going to run alongside her, and I'm going to give her the 10 yards. If she gives her the 10 yards, then maybe that gives Ondigi a slight psychological advantage. And the early stages of this race are nothing to do with physical attainment. They're all about making a mark, making a psychological statement, and relaxing, not getting overawed, not getting too nervous.
Down towards Woolwich Barracks, which is some mile and a half away. And actually, there's something new there on this stretch of road. The sleeping policeman breaks it up slightly for them, but they prefer it to be flat. Ondigi leading, Andrea Wallace and Liz McColgan together. Just behind them, they've got Kokoska of Poland and Dora of Germany, first and second last year, but they are stretching away, the leading three. And just behind the German and the Pole is Lorraine Moller, the Olympic bronze medalist from New Zealand. Well, both the leading contenders like to front run.
That's right, and that was what we were thinking about beforehand. And I imagined that they would just run alongside each other for the first part of the race. But Lisa Ondigi, when she's analysed her strengths and her approach to the marathon, she knows she's much more experienced marathon running. She knows at this sort of pace She's run out before. Liz McColgan has never run anything like this quick before. And as they go up and down those sleeping policemen, those bumps on the road, which won't be a pleasure for them, she's staking her claim. She's putting the marker down. She's saying, I know about marathon running. I've been annoyed all week by your behaviour and your talk about the marathon and how much you know about it. Well, come and run at my pace.
Incidentally, the official mile time slightly faster than we were given on the screen, 5:14.
Well, I'll tell you, that's why the three of them are clear of the other two more experienced marathon runners, Katrin Dora and Kokoska and Poland and Lorraine Muller, the Olympic bronze medalist. It's because they ran that first mile about 15 seconds faster than you would have expected. So if the second mile continues, they'll be half a minute up after 2 miles, which is surprisingly quick. But Lisa Ondigi is here for business, and Liz McColgan's certainly here for business too.
Andrea Wallace, the lesser known of the three leaders, finished third last year when she really hit the wall at 23 miles. She said, I was going really well till 23 miles, I fancied winning, and suddenly my legs went completely. My breathing was all right, everything else was all right, but my legs went. But she's 12 months wiser.
And she's 12 months stronger. Her training for this race has been geared particularly for this race. She hasn't had any of the diversions that she's had in the past over cross-country and things like that. She's run a couple of half marathons, and there Lisa Ondigi glancing over her shoulder. Wouldn't be surprised with what she saw with Liz McColgan on her inside. Maybe a little more surprised to see Andrea Wallace there, but two Britons, one Scot, one Englishman and one Australian, the leading group. And let's not forget the chasing group, because there are three very talented distance runners in that second group, and they're running good marathon pace as well, so let's discount them.
Kokoska and Dora in 4th and 5th place, just behind them Lorraine Muller, the Olympic bronze medalist. And they've made a conscious decision, quite clearly. They're all experienced athletes, the three in 4th, 5th and 6th place. They've obviously made a conscious decision that the early pace is too fast.
I think that's right. I think that the early pace was too fast. We'll see what the second mile is like in a few minutes, but the first mile was a bit quick. And the experienced marathon runners behind have said, you know, we know how fast we need to run for the first mile. First mile is not important. They're coming up to 10 minutes running, and really it's just getting the relaxation, getting the nervous tension out of your system, just letting the running happen. And Liz McColgan says, when I run the marathon, I can run from behind, or I can run alongside, or I can run from in front. Well, she's running behind here, and she just has to sit there, relax, and let Ondigi make the running.
Look at the blue line there, which traces the shortest possible route. It takes 9 hours of intensive work to paint it, and by midnight tonight, all traces will have been removed. But it's nice for these athletes, for the fun athletes and the club runners later on. There are so many of them in the race. Well, they run over 26 miles, 385 yards, because they can't. There are too many of them. Follow the blue line all the way. There's quite a big gap here.
Well, the second mile, 10 minutes 36 seconds for 2 miles, so the second mile was a bit slower, 5:22. If that time that came up on the screen was entirely accurate, we'll get the official time in a few minutes.
Actually, that time on the screen was absolutely accurate, so they slowed to a 5:22. 5:14 the first mile, 5:22 the second. And they're just letting Ondigi know they're around. Actually, they're approaching now Woolwich Barracks, just before 3 miles, and the first feeding station. We call them feeding stations, but in fact, all they'll take on board drinks. The elite like their own preparations, which were handed in last night, placed at points along the route where they want to collect them.
I think Liz McColgan will be a little bit happier now, because the first 2 miles, when Lisa Ondigi was just running away a bit, stretching it out a bit, having a few yards ahead, I would imagine Liz will have thought about running alongside Lisa Ondiki rather than running 10 or 15 yards behind her. But Andrea Wallace has decided that the way to go in this race is to go with the big ones, go with the stars, go with the people who've run a lot faster than Andrea Wallace. Her best time is 2 hours 31 minutes, and you're looking at both Lisa Martin, Lisa Ondiki and Liz McColgan run a lot faster than that. So Andrea Wallace has obviously decided that I'm going to go with the leader, I'm going to hang on as long as I can. And really at times that's the only way to improve in the marathon when you're as inexperienced as Andrea Wallace is.
That's quite a substantial lead they've got. That's Dora Krakowska, Dora of Germany, Krakowska of Poland, and Moller of New Zealand. So they'll be between 2 and 3 miles. Meanwhile, they're getting ready at the Greenwich Park for the start of the elite men, which is on the other side of the common, by the way, Blackheath. And in about 90 seconds, we'll have the start of the wheelchair event. And someone there with a problem. Now, we've got Chris Hallam with us, who's won this event twice. But first, Paul Dickinson.
Well, there certainly is a bit of drama down at the start already. Daniel Wesley, last year's winner, looks as though he may have had a puncture, but he's on his way back to the start alongside 60 competitors who are getting ready. And the organisers, along with the British Sports Association for the Disabled, have put together a superb field, including both defending champions, Tanni Grey of Wales and that athlete there, Daniel Wesley. The starter today is going to be Lord Snowdon, who is president of the Snowdon Awards scheme, one of the nominated charities of the race sponsors. And Chris Hallam, you've won this event twice before, and today it looks as though it could be a superb event.
Yes, Paul, I think we have a real chance of a British win in all 3 categories. With the men's, in the men's race, we're looking at David Holding, the winner in 18.9, and Ivan Newman, number 9. I think we're coming up to the start. In the quadriplegic class, we're looking at Jan-Ove Mattsson from Sweden and Pete Carruthers from Loughborough. And in the women's class, it's going to be a real tussle between Lily Ongary, ranked number 2 in Europe, last year's winner Tanni Grey from Cardiff, and Rose Hill from Milton Keynes. 10 seconds to go. Up to you, Paul.
So Lord Snowdon, whose organisation and charity has done so much to help disabled sportsmen and disabled people throughout the country. And it's a very large field, and we were just debating actually whether, as a result of the speed of these wheelchairs, we're looking for a finishing time certainly in the men's race of around about 1 hour 50, whether some of the slower elite women may be caught up. And already the field is stretched out there. Daniel Wesley is just on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, he won this event last year in a very tight finish. We've had some very close finishes over the last few years. And Daniel Wesley is certainly going to be in the frame at the end.
Tanni Grey just about to start for the women. They've got a separate start. I think they start about a minute behind. In the lead there, I saw David Holding from Kettering taking the lead with Håkan Eriksson in second place. Up there as well was Ivan Newman from Saffron Walden. And here we are at the women's start. You're looking at Lily Ongray, number 13, right in front of the picture. Rose Hill on her left and Tanni Grey on her right.
Rose Hill and Tanni Grey had a remarkable tussle last year. And Tanni Grey, a bit of an all-rounder. She came home from Barcelona in the Paralympics with 4 gold medals on track events ranging from 100 up to 800 metres. Since that time, she's also appeared on Question of Sport, where she did rather well, and become somewhat of a personality. And there you see her just on the left there, in the lead.
When you look at Tanni Grey's performance in the Olympic Games, winning gold medal at 100 metres, it's amazing to me how she's good at 100 metres and at the marathon. That wouldn't happen in athletics. I wonder if you could explain that, Chris.
Yeah, it's a little bit like cycling, where, I mean, you've got Håkan Eriksson, who was up there, he was in second place in the men, and he won silver medal in the 100 and 200 in Barcelona last year. And like Tanni Grey, who won the 4 golds, the 4 sprints as we call them, 100 up to 800. And then you've got Lily Ongray, who's the long distance specialist, taking silver medal in the bronze, and she's actually world record holder for 5,000 metres. I think the longer distance girls will do probably around 100 mile a week, whereas the sprinters like Tanni will probably concentrate on about 50 mile a week.
Well, now the same three dominating the elite race. Lisa Ondieki, Liz McColgan, Andrea Wallace. The third mile running 5:20, so they've gone 5:14, 5:12, 5:20.
And they're on their first feed station. They've got their special drinks that they made up last night and delivered to the start. They sent them along there under supervision. And Lisa Ondieki, I know, is particularly conscious about the security of her drinks. She was a bit disturbed in Barcelona when she sent her drinks to the start, and she felt that maybe they weren't exactly the same drinks as she delivered the night before. So she got herself a bit upset about Barcelona, and I know she was really conscious about her drinks today, because in the marathon nowadays, they all take isotonic drinks, which really are a benefit, both dehydration if it's on a hot day, but also to keep your vitamin levels and your enzyme levels equal, so that you get the best out of your performance all the way. There's a lot of research going on in these kinds of drinks, and it seems to be the case that getting the right drink is quite important in the later results in the marathon.
Actually, you may have noticed there, they're on dual carriageway, and in fact this is about the joining point for the elite men and the club and fancy dress runners. They'll be running on both sides of the road at this stage. Approaching the mile in the wheelchair event.
They're certainly going on at some pace here. Just looking for Daniel Wesley. He's tucked in the pack there somewhere, around about 5th place. George Van Dam, he's leading at the moment and already developing into a very interesting situation.
Yeah, we've got George Van Dam in the pink and Ivan Newman from Saffron Walden in centre picture in the white. David Holding behind Håkan Eriksson, Dan Wesley. We're looking at Ian Thompson there. We'll probably see a break round about the 3 or 4 mile mark. These guys will stay together for 3 or 4 miles. I think they might actually catch the women probably at about 4 or 5 miles, so we could be in for a tussle there. But it looks like the break has been made. We've got 5 or 6 guys away, and they'll stay away for at least the next 6 miles.
Now, we've heard that the London course is in fact notoriously slow. We've got a world record, less than 1 hour 30 now, but we're not expecting that sort of time today, are we?
No, we've got a course record of 1:51.42 from Dan Wesley last year. And considering last year we had the world record holder here, Hans Price in Switzerland, and he could only attain a few seconds behind that. I think we're probably looking in today's conditions with a slight headwind of probably breaking the course record just. So we're looking at maybe 1 hour 50 at the max, but probably a little bit over that.
Well, there's a very big gap developed in the women's race. This is the chasing group. Dora, last year's winner, leads them from Germany. Kukowska of Poland there. Moller of New Zealand. And Rybicka of Poland with that group as well. Anna Rybicka, 27th last year, but obviously running a great deal faster this time.
Well, Katrin Dora is running fast enough. I mean, I'm looking at the split times after 3 miles, and if you look at the leaders, they're running almost world record pace for the marathon. And so this chasing group here, they're running fast enough, they're running strong enough, they'll know exactly what they're doing. Katrin Dora is a very experienced marathon runner. She's won 15 of her 24 marathons, so she knows what pace is about in a marathon. And the first 3 miles, let's face it, are much less important than the last 3 miles.
That's where you can do some damage, but look at this gap. Ondieki still pressing on in front. Of course, runs for Australia, but lives now in Kenya. She's got her homes in Kenya and Australia. And she's forcing again a little bit. The last mile, 10:28, doesn't make a lot of sense. That's the last 2 miles there we had up. Now we go back for the elite men's race and also the multitude that will follow them. And incidentally, we've got the 4th mile time now at 5:26. So the women have gone 5:14, 5:22, 5:20, 5:26. And they're on a world best pace. Christensen set the record in 1985 on this course. But of course, on that occasion, she was running with the men.
That's right, but I think the women's race today is competitive enough. If they really do mean to run that sort of time, then the competition's there to do it. But this is really what the London Marathon is all about, the mass participation. When you talk to people, really, they're very interested in the elite results, and this year they've been particularly interested in the women's result, but really it's about who's running from where and which charity they're raising money for, because people talk about the London Marathon as being a charity run, and it really is. The money that's been raised for charity over the 12 years is approaching £50 million, and everyone here will be keen to complete the course, to register their time, and then to collect their sponsorship money. We're looking at the elite start here, the elite men, and the second fastest marathon runner of all time, Ahmed Saleh's in that field, and they're just watching him tying his laces. That's Rob Di Castella, who's one of the greatest marathon runners in history, and this is Rob's swan song. Rob says he's not able to continue with his training for the marathon now that he's the director of the Institute of Sport in Australia. And we've seen Rob run great marathons. He was the first ever world marathon champion. I think he'll run a good race today, but it's a farewell from Rob Di Castella, who's served the sport particularly well.
As Hugh Jones, who's finished first, second, third and fourth in this race. Hugh, now 37, won the event in 82. He was second in 86, third in 87 and fourth in 88. A durable athlete. He actually won a marathon in Malta earlier this year, just inside 2 hours 20. And won the Stockholm Marathon last year. Eamon Martin just going out of shot in his first marathon. In the final minute now, that's Saleh, the fastest man in the field and the second fastest man in history, but perhaps a little bit over the top, but we'll find out today. The athletes got a countdown going, and the race goes on the Greenwich time signal at 9:30. 30 seconds left. The elite event being started by Sir Ranulph Fiennes, the mayors of the local boroughs on the other start lines. Many of the athletes starting their own watches there, and they've gone off very quickly indeed.
Well, the start's underway, and this is a great moment. I was reading this morning's Mail on Sunday when Pat Collins, one of the distinguished sports journalists, was interviewing Chris Braysher, and he said to Chris Braysher that this is the best idea that British sport has ever had, and I think that's a fair compliment, and it's nice to see people writing things like that about distance running. They're not running yet, they're just walking through the gates. I noticed before the start, David, they always keep those gates locked.
Yes, that's the other start, actually, on the other side of Blackheath. Well, the Greenwich Park start. Number 19 there, Mike O'Reilly of Great Britain. Also for the leaders there, number 8 was Bea Korea. As Jorgensen of Denmark, who's won the event previously, the long hair who just went through. And in conjunction with the elite race, we've got the 3A's Championship. Won't interest these runners on the other side of the Blackheath. But actually, there's no doubt about it at all that starting the race in this way slows them down in the early stages. It's impossible to do much better than 9 to 10 minute miles. In fact, I've talked to athletes who've gone through, haven't been able to run faster than 11-minute miles for the first mile, but that's a benefit in some ways.
I think that's a great service, and the thing that amuses me is you see all these banners and you see them come through the gate, and then you don't know what happens to them ever after that.
Well, just come out of shot there. A large green banner halfway down there is for the Ron Pickering Memorial Fund. Has done sterling work over the last couple of years, raising funds, well-needed funds for young athletes.
According to Gene Pickering last night, there's some 70 runners got race numbers for the Ron Pickering Memorial Fund. And among the athletes helped, two who performed with distinction last year. Well, several who performed with distinction last year, but a couple in particular. Curtis Robb, who 19 reached the final of the Olympic 800 metres, and Steve Smith, who won the World Junior High Jump Championship. Well, these are the elite leaders now. Number 19 is Mike O'Reilly, member of Shaftesbury and Barnet. And then Sato of Japan is up there wearing number 70. I can see also in that leading group Gnarly wearing number 10, just behind the leaders. He was the man who made the pace last year, but then astonished everybody, including the race director, Alan Story, who expected him to drop out at halfway when he went on and actually finished in third place. Number 8. Fourth place is Bayek of Korea.
And then right next to Bayek of Korea is Rob Di Castella. And just on the inside there in the green and black vest is Salvatore Bettiol of Italy. And we expect him to run well. He was 5th in the Olympic Games. And there I can see on the inside in the blue and yellow striped vest, Eamon Martin. And there number 15 in the all white alongside Sala of Djibouti in the black and the green headband is Paul Evans. And you can sense this, the first mile of this race is going along a bit, because you can see them rushing to get their positions and having to hurry just a little bit extra and go slightly faster than they would have anticipated, but they're going pretty quickly in the men's marathon.
Still O'Reilly there. Sato of Japan, Di Castella, the Australian, who's the only man in history to run in 4 Olympic marathons and finish all 4. So, the mile time showing there at 4 minutes 43, Brendan.
Well, we anticipate the first mile being a bit quick, and that is a bit quick. But now they just, as I said, they were having to scamper to get in a position, and it is slightly, gently rolling downhill towards the river. The first couple of miles are the easier miles, both because they're early miles and because they're sloping down towards the river. But Mike O'Reilly is an experienced distance runner. He's already run 2:11 for the marathon this year, and he's been recruited as a pacemaker, and for a change they've asked the pacemaker to try and get to about 16 miles. And they've asked him to do it in consistent pace and try and get to halfway in about an hour and 4 minutes, 2 hours 8 pace for the full marathon. And Mike O'Reilly is a reliable runner. He knows about pace running. He knows the first mile is slightly downhill, but they're still scampering along a bit. Thomas Gnarly on the outside there, the Tanzanian athlete. I don't think they'll have noticed that sign. They won't have been reading for any of the literature on the side of the course.
And the bumps of the sleepy policeman, which they won't enjoy. Well, that's the scene as the field trails back. They cleared the start though on the fast start, and the joining point for the two main starts is after about 2.5–3 miles. They come together on either side of the old carriageway. This is Greenwich Park start. Not been able to clear that so quickly, but in the main, these are the fundraisers, and they'll go through the start. Well, they'll hope to clear it in about 10 to 12 minutes.
Well, that's why a lot of the runners out there will be wearing their stopwatches, because when they come across Westminster Bridge, of course, the time on the clock will probably not be the time that they've taken to actually run the course. It's going to take them some time to get going. And 25,000 runners of all shapes and sizes. They're certainly going to remember this day for the rest of their lives, and for a lot of them, in fact 8,000 of them, it's the first time they've ever run a marathon.
Well, now we can join the women's race. The split times, 5 miles, 27.2, and they're slowing quite a bit, Brendan. 5:30, 5:36 the last 2 miles.
Well, that overall 5 mile time is 27:02. That's pretty quick. That's almost world record pace for the marathon. Having said that, the first 5 miles are the easier 5 miles because they do fall away down towards the river. And the chasing group at that point were 45 seconds behind the 3 leaders. And as they come into this area, which is nice to see the crowds out supporting them, they'll be reading the lead car, they'll be looking at the clock, they'll be calculating their splits, and it's still the same 3. It's Liz McColgan, Lisa Ondieki, and Andrea Wallace, who at this point, I've got to say, is running a very brave race. She's almost running 10 minutes faster, the pace for the marathon, 10 minutes faster than she's ever run before. So she'll have 2 thoughts in her mind. Am I going too quick? Are my legs going to be able to stand up? Because at 23 miles last year, Andrea Wallace says she's never felt like that before. She felt good for 22 miles and then died in the last 3 miles.
Actually, we've got the mile split now, the official mile split between 5 and 6, and it's slowed yet again, 5:41. So going down the 6 miles, the first mile was 5:14, then 5:22, the third mile 5:20, the fourth mile corrected to 5:30, 5:36, 5:41.
And they're settling down at that good, strong pace. And this is the position that we expected them to be in. We expected Liz McColgan to run alongside Lisa Ondieki. Lisa Ondieki, the much more experienced marathon runner. She was the favourite for the Olympic Games in the marathon. She was silver medalist in Seoul when Liz McColgan was silver medalist in the 10,000 metres. And things didn't go right for her. Now she's found herself just behind Liz McColgan, and she's just changed the role there. And I think Andrea Wallace is now realising that she can't keep with this pace, and she's going to gently let them go away and then concentrate on running her own race, because I think whatever the pace is here, and it really is quick, I think it's a little bit beyond Andrea Wallace, who's made a positive start to the race, and now she's got to really try and consolidate, because the chasing group, led by Katrin Dora, last year's winner, Kakowska of Poland right behind her, Rybika, number 109 of Poland, and the Olympic bronze medalist from Barcelona in the black and pink vest, Lorraine Muller. Katrin Dora looks good there. She looks strong. The last report we had was that the gap between the chasing group was about 40 seconds, 45 seconds to the leaders, and you can just sense their time between the time Liz McColgan then took their drinks. They've still got their drinks in hand, so that 45-second gap would just be about right.
Turning towards Cutty Sark, just a slight detour from the main road. They run round the famous T-Trepper and then turn sharply left back towards the main road, and then on the way to Surrey Docks. Just to bring you up to date with the men's race, they're through 2 miles. 4:45 for the first mile, 4:54 for the second. Sato is leading. We'll just check a time here on this corner if we can. It was 36.7 for that leading group. If we can just pick up the chasing group, we'll get the time difference. So they've rejoined the main road, and there's quite a gap, it really is. We'll see what happens at Cutty Sark, but I reckon they're almost a minute behind. 36.07 we were looking at for the leaders. Dora, and it looks to me as Dora's forcing the pace a little bit there. Kakowska of Poland. And the gap on this corner is just about 50 seconds.
Well, it looked as though it was about a 50-second gap, and Katrin Dora is beginning to push on from the second group now. She looks strong, she looks relaxed, she looks very comfortable at this pace, and it's a good, strong pace she's running too, because the leaders are running particularly fast. Kakowska there in the white and pink, and then behind her Lorraine Muller, and then Rybika of Poland. So they're the leading 7.
That's the leading wheelchair there, already catching some of the elite women runners.
That's George Van Damme of Belgium, and in fact he's the fastest man in the field. His best time is credited as 1 hour 28 minutes, which is phenomenal, but he's really pushing on now. And he's opened up quite a gap between himself and the chasing group, and presumably in that chasing group somewhere the defending champion, Daniel Wesley of Canada. So there are the positions. Van Damme of Belgium is leading, and Newman of England going very well. David Holding is in there as well, and Van den Broek of Belgium. So 2 Belgians, 2 Englishmen, and a Swede in the leading group.
Take a look at the leading men now. That's Sato, number 70. Also there is Michael Riley of Great Britain, wearing 19. Eamon Martin wearing 59. Nali of Tanzania, 3rd last year. Castella of Australia with them. And Garcia wearing number 4 from Mexico, the red shorts. And also in the leading group, Paul Evans of Belgrave. Now, looking down on that shot, this is approximately the joining point from the 2 starts, the 2 main starts. In fact, the fast men on this near side of the dual carriageway, and looking back up the course, the slower men came off the park start. They'll be joining the race on the other side, and gradually they merge at one of the roundabouts. They gradually brought it back onto the same side of the road. Steve Brace is up there, one of Britain's most consistent marathon runners, member of the Bridge End Club. Steve wearing number 18. 32 is Bujorti of Norway. Steve Brace right on the outside of that group. Shahanga of Tanzania, number 11. And the men's mile time for the 3rd mile, they did a 4:44. So 4:45 from the 1st mile, 4:54, 4:44. Well, the starts have been cleared, and now the job of cleaning up has started as well, and already they're taking out the blue line. Certainly, that leading group has certainly split the men. There's McColgan, where she likes to be. .550s. They're slowing quite a bit, Brendan, actually, when you look at those mile times.
The pace is settling down now, and they're running about 2 hours 24 pace, which is the kind of time that we expected they would run. Obviously, Lisa Ondigi in the first couple of miles took them along at a bit of a lick and then just settled down, and she's now quite happy sitting in behind Liz McColgan. But I've noticed Andrea Wallace a few times looked over her shoulder. She's up at the big one, she's up at the stars, she's in amongst the Olympic medalists, and she sometimes thinks that that's not the class that she's in yet. But I noticed when she did look over her shoulder, she wouldn't have seen anything because we looked down the road and the gap is about 50 seconds. So Andrea Wallace has got a bit of a dilemma now. She's got to decide whether she can hang on at this pace with McColgan leaning into the breeze and pushing on. Lisa Ondigi just sitting in behind her, and then Andrea Wallace in 3rd place.
Actually, she's quite a confident athlete, though. She wasn't afraid to go with the pace last year with Dora and Kukowska. Paid for it at 23 miles, but that bit more experienced. Of course, the fact they've slowed down to a 5:50 has helped her to stay there. Now, it seemed to me Ondigi made quite a burst there for a marathon. It was quite a change of pace.
Well, I'm sure that was because she wasn't happy that Liz was slowing the pace down. I'm not sure that Liz was slowing the pace down deliberately, but she gestured across to Andrea Wallace and said, right, I've had enough of this. And there, as you can see, she's increased the cadence, she's increased the pace of her legs, and she's now looking more comfortable, much more comfortable in the lead than she is sitting behind Liz McColgan. Immediately opens a couple of yards, and you feel that Lisa Ondiki's got a lot more under the bonnet. She's got some power there, she's got some experience there, and I wonder, looking over her shoulder, she's thinking, you know, is that a break?
Well, there's confirmation of the leading six, and also with just behind Moller is in 7th place Rai Picker of Poland. Well, this is a definite bid now to break them. Veronique Marot, fastest Briton ever over this distance. The London winner about 4 years ago. Long way behind. She's had a lot of injury problems. Just approaching cutting song. Well, certainly Lisa Ondieki has made a decisive move there. Testing McColgan in particular, trying to impose herself on the race.
And that was a sudden burst, and she took those few yards very, very easily, very, very comfortably. She wasn't unhappy with the pace that Liz McColgan was setting. And you know, when they train for the marathon, they try and measure their fitness, and the marathon is the hardest distance of all to measure your fitness. If you run the mile, you can measure your fitness by running 3/4 of a mile. And if you run the 5,000 meters, you can measure your fitness by running 3,000 meters. But for the marathon, you can only measure your fitness by specific training sessions. And I think they come into the marathon a little bit anxious. I think Lisa Ondieki feels as though she's in great shape, and she certainly looks that way.
Well, back with the leading men, and it's Mike O'Reilly of Shaftesbury who's the leader. Eamon Martin's just behind him, and then Bettiol, experienced man from Italy, is right up there too, wearing number 9. Garcia of Mexico is in that leading group as well. Nali, third last year, there too. Bettiol, number 9. The men have just gone through 4 miles. The last mile, 4:50. So very, well, 4:45, 4:54, 4:44, 4:50. Eamon Martin, first ever marathon. Quite comfortable. Bettiol just behind him. Steve Race wearing 18. Number 8, just in the picture, is Bayek of Korea. Useful athlete from just over 2 hours 10. Course record, incidentally, set in 85 by Steve Jones when he won it for Great Britain. Great race with Charlie Spedding, who is in 2nd place. And it must have been a fast year that year, because that was the year Christensen also set a world best for the women.
It was a great year for the marathon that year, 1985. Mike O'Reilly's looking comfortable, doing his job pretty well. And there, that 4th mile, 4:51, 19:14 over the 4 miles, and Eamon Martin takes his drink there. He's probably been practicing to do that, and you've got to practice to drink on the run in the marathon. But I think Eamon's a little bit involved, a little bit too early. He'll find this pace very comfortable, being the good class 10,000 meter and 10 mile runner that he is. And really, he doesn't need to be there just yet. He'd be safer if he was just a little less concerned about being competitive and just about getting the early miles in.
Well, now in the women's race, this break is beginning to look dangerous. Ondieki is just creeping away, inch by inch, from McColgan and Wallace. Let's have a closer look at how McColgan and Andrea Wallace are feeling. But they're certainly being asked to live with a much faster pace, because there was no doubt at all the injection of pace by Lisa Ondieki has made a big difference. And McColgan is not the sort of athlete who likes to let anyone go like that.
Well, you wouldn't. This point in the marathon, she knows how competitive it's going to be, and she wouldn't just by choice let Lisa Ondieki steal those yards. Andrea Wallace just sitting in there behind Liz McColgan, and they're being passed by the wheelchair.
Well, just on the right-hand side there is George Van Damme of Belgium, the leading competitor in the men's wheelchair race. He's just gone speeding past Andrea Wallace and Liz McColgan. And an enormous gap has developed between himself and the chasing group.
Well, it's no wonder a gap has developed here, because Lisa Ondieki ran the last mile in 5:33.
Well, you could see the mile before when Liz McColgan led on the 7th mile, 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Lisa Ondieki gestured across to Andrea Wallace and said, "This isn't fast enough, I'm not wasting my time," and off she went, 5:33, injected some pace, stole a few yards, and now begins to think seriously about trying to extend this lead and try and make this early bid to win the marathon. But just looking behind, I just began to feel that Liz McColgan began to look a little smoother. She's got the early miles out of her way, she's got the nervousness out of her way, she's now down to being the true distance runner she is. Lisa Ondieki looks good, looks in control, and Liz McColgan in second place begins the chase.
Well, there's the people will be out for a very, very long time today, just going through the first mile.
They were saying earlier that some 8,000 people are running in the London Marathon for the very first time, and when you start to look down some of the statistics, they're quite remarkable when you see that there are some 7 people over the age of 80 running, and equally there are 98 people here today with birthdays, and some birthday present they're going to have anything up to 8 hours after the start.
Well, there's a companionship at the back, and there's respect for each other at the front. Rani still pushing on in front. Garcia, Mexico, just behind him. Eamon Martin in the yellow vest of his club, Basildon. Bettiol of Italy in the green. 64 there is Torres of Spain. Just behind him is Costella, the Australian, running his last marathon. And determined to make an impression too. Sato of Japan on the outside. Paul Evans still of Belgrave with that leading group. Steve Brace of Bridgend wearing 18. See, that leading group, they've split quite a distance from the rest.
They certainly have, but there's a lot of them in it. All the good boys are in there, all the ones that we expected to feature. There's about 25 or more than that, maybe 30 in that group. But then the gaps begin to appear. 25 minutes running under their belt. They're in the 5th mile here. Be interesting to see if the 5th mile, 5 minutes they run for the last mile. Let's see what the next one is. 4:59 exactly for that last mile, and that's good, solid, sensible pace. Mike O'Reilly is doing a good job.
Back with the women's race, and Andrea Wallace is dropping back a little bit. Ondieki still forcing the pace. McColgan now in clear second place. Last mile, 5:15, is getting faster. Between 6 and 7, they slowed to a 5:50. That's when Ondieki decided that was enough. Then between 7 and 8, 5:33, and she's just run 5:15 for the 8th to 9th mile.
I've got to say that watching her, she looks more comfortable at 5:30 and 5:15 pace than she did when she was following McColgan when they were running 5:50. But now that she's thrown down the gauntlet and we're looking just down the road, you can see Liz McColgan is intent on trying to close that gap now. This is the real part of the race. This really is a race, because you wouldn't open a gap like that if you didn't mean business, and equally Liz McColgan wouldn't let her open that gap if she was easily able to cover it. So now it's Liz McColgan got to apply herself gradually, got to work there. She's got her drink, she aimed for a drink, got it and collected it. She's been practicing drinking on the run, which is not an easy thing to do. And I think Andrea Wallace in 3rd place now, settling down, and really needs to be a bit conservative about her approach now. She needs to control the running, run at her pace, not anyone else's. She's run well so far. She's run really aggressively and really positively. And let's see if you can just hang on there in the 3rd place.
Okay, back we go.
Well, Liz McColgan's not known as a conservative athlete. She always appears to want to attack. But I wonder whether her judgment is right here, because 5:15 is some mile to put in at that stage. And McColgan may well feel, OK, you force it like that, I'll run more even pace.
That may be the case, and if you look at the overall time there, then 49:21 minutes for 8 miles means that the overall speed would be about 2 hours 23 and a bit, which is as fast as Lisa Ondiki's run before, but almost 4 minutes faster than Liz McColgan's ever run before. So Liz is running 3.5 minutes faster than she's ever run before. Having said that, she's only run 2 marathons. She's won them both, but she's never been in a position in a marathon like this before.
Very, very long way to go yet, and so much can happen in the closing stages, as we've seen so often. Actually, looking at Ondiki's record, she's run 17 marathons. She's won 8. Somewhere out on the course will be our husband, the great Kenyan middle distance runner, Yobus Ondiki, the world 5,000 metre champion. They're over here with their daughter, Emma, who was born in 1990. Roughly the same time as Liz McColgan's baby. I think there's just about a month's difference. No change in the men at the moment. That's O'Reilly leading. Bettiol of Italy in second place. Garcia of Mexico, a real danger man in third place. It's a bit thick set for a marathon runner, almost as if he's carrying weight. On the outside there is Sato of Japan. Number 64 is Torres of Spain. Eamon Martin of Great Britain's in there. Paul Evans of Great Britain in there as well. Right on the outside in the all black, Salah of Djibouti.
Actually, David, you said about Garcia of Mexico. He trains with 3 dogs called Napoleon, Hitler and Gaddafi, and he announced this at the press conference the other day. And John Rodder of The Guardian asked him the question, does that mean you've got some admiration for those 3 people? And he says you have to respect the good side of everyone.
Actually, let's tell the truth, Brendan, when you said what you said when you heard about that. What an idiot. Who would go out training with dogs?
Well, that's exactly right. I didn't mind him having the 3 dogs with those strange names, but I didn't believe that he'd actually go out running with them, because there's nothing more irritating than running alongside with a dog.
We saw the balloons in the background marking the 6-mile marker. They reached 6 miles in 29 minutes and 10 seconds, and the last mile was 4:57. In the background there, the naval colleges, the Queen's House have just passed. Out of your sight, on the right-hand side, the Naval Hospital.
And I noticed there that Salah of Djibouti made a sudden move through the field to run right alongside the pacemaker. And when he was interviewed the other day, he said he's absolutely convinced he's going to win this race. He's looked at the field. There's nobody better than him in the field. There's obviously no one faster than him in the field. He's the second fastest marathon runner of all time. He's in the black vest and the green headband, Ahmed Salah of Djibouti, looking around, seeing who's in the group, and deciding that no, he doesn't want to take that closer order. He wants to slip down the field. Just behind the pacemaker, Mike O'Reilly, is Salvatore Bettiol, who ran a great race at Barcelona to finish 5th in the Olympic Games with that incredibly oppressive course and very difficult weather. And he's recovered from that sufficiently, and he now means business today. He ran well in the London Marathon a couple of years ago. There's Rob D. Castella going through, but then that group of around 25 people is well clear of the chasing group. And I'm actually looking into I'm looking through that leading group for Britain's leading athlete, Paul Evans. He was the top marathon runner in the London Marathon last year. He was 5th. He had a great summer when he was in the Olympic Games, when he was our first finisher in the 10,000 metres. He ran the fastest 10,000 metres by a Briton for 4 years, and he's been made by many people the favourite to win this race, and I can't see him in that leading group.
Looking back through the group, he was there a short time ago. Bjorkley of Norway, by the way, in 4th place. We're just watching them through. Be a big disappointment if Paul Evans is in trouble. He ran so well as well in the 10,000 metres in the Olympic Games in Barcelona. And we've had a corrected time now for 10 miles in the women's race. it's 54.58. Actually, in the women's race, we should be able to pick them up very shortly. But Andi Iki's just run the last mile, 9 to 10, in 5:37. That's confirmed there. Still on course for a very, very fast time indeed. Lisa Andi Iki there, and I wonder what the gap is like. If we can look back down the road, possibly, and see if McColgan's holding the distance.
The ladies are positioned first to second position.
McColgan's not too far away. We're told it's about 10 seconds. It certainly doesn't look that far.
Well, gap of about 10 seconds there between Lisa Andi Iki and Liz McColgan. At this stage of the race, after 10 miles, they're running about 2 hours 24 pace now, and they've settled down at that pace. That fast mile of 5:15 that Lisa Andi Iki put in opened up that gap of 10 seconds, and then we're looking for Liz McColgan coming around that corner. But just checking the time, into second place. Liz McColgan is surrounded by the wheelchairs, but there she is, about 10 seconds behind Lisa Andi Iki.
We just have a quick update on the wheelchair race.
Well, these are some of the competitors some way down the field, but we're just waiting really for the leading men's competitor, who we expect to be George Van Dam of Belgium, to go over Tower Bridge.
I said Liz McColgan looks quite comfortable there, and probably quite determined to run her own race. Just looking back down the field behind Liz McColgan, Andrea Wallace has lost touch a little bit. Yes, she's dropping, but no. There's Dora, last year's winner, catching her very quickly indeed. Dora so vastly experienced. She's run 24 marathons, won 15 of them. She's ignoring the fast pace in front, and in every sense, running her own race on the clock. Seen her in the background taking repeated glances at the watch.
And she's working her way through well, Catherine Dora. Andrea Wallace now in a difficult position, having been dropped off the leading group. She's run well so far. She's run fast, a lot faster than she's ever run before to this point of the race. And she's really now going to concentrate on, remember all the training she's done, how hard she's worked for this. This is the one she's aimed for, and it's now a case of constant application. Remind yourself of what you've done to get there, and remember that you're going to have to do it again for this time next year, and don't give up on it. It's easy to give up on a marathon. Many people do if things don't come to expectations. And the fact she went with the leading group, she knew that she wasn't going to stay with them all the way, and there we are.
Well, as we said, that is George Van Dam of Belgium, the first man at just over 12 miles on the Tower Bridge, and he's having a great race, but I think he's being chased by Ivan Newman, and we've got a special interest about that athlete here because, Chris, you're the coach to the man in second place at the moment.
Yeah, Ivan's about a minute and a half behind. I've been coaching Ivan for the last year and a half. He's been looking good all year. He's been beating David Holden in the last 2 half marathons. But look at George Van Dam go. His arms are coming up high. He's looking totally relaxed. He's racing for Team Amigo at the moment. And he said last night in the hotel that he wants to win this one for his dad today because it's his dad's birthday. Incidentally, it's our mum's birthday as well today. Normally he goes over and does the Rotterdam Marathon, but they've had problems. He said that he won it 2 years ago, and they've insisted now that he has to go through 19,000 runners. So he's decided to come over to London and give it a crack, and what a crack he is giving it. Look at the arms coming up, beautiful technique. The guy's out on his own. We're going into a headwind, and it's unbelievable the speeds they're getting. We're definitely going to have a course record today.
Back with the men's race, they're through 7 miles in 34 minutes and 8 seconds. And the last 3 miles have been very, very even indeed. 4:59, 4:57, 4:58. Confirmed there. And so O'Reilly still making the pace for them. Betty Olive Italy in second place now. Number 8 just going through is Bayek of Korea, Ayman Martin there. Garcia, 33, is Hazarji of Italy. Torres we saw there. Number 13, Skosana of South Africa. Dave Buzzer, wearing 26 from Cornwall. Nali, the pacemaker last year. Not so attacking this year, and he's losing ground as well. Rico, the Mexican, number 6, just come through the picture. Actually, the leader there, O'Reilly's taking them along very sensibly, but in fact, the time is quite quick. What is between 2 hours 8, 2 hours 9 at this pace, Brendan?
At this point in the race, the schedule that they're running on is about 2 hours 8 pace, and that's what they asked him to do. They asked him to go halfway in 1 hour and 4 minutes, and he looks as though he's doing that particularly well. He's doing it smoothly, and he's saying, look, if I'm the pacemaker, just stick in behind me. That's all I'm here for. You don't have to do anything about it. I'll get you there in time. And it's the confidence that a good class runner gives the other runners, so that they don't have to worry about it. Salvatore Bettiol in 2nd place, Bayek of Korea in 3rd place. And in the last couple of years, the Koreans have done extremely well. They had no reputation in the marathon at all. And then some East German coaches went across there and started coaching them. They've just gone through 8 miles there, 4:47, 38:55 for 8 miles, and that's about right. That's about 2 hours 8.5 minutes. But I was saying about the Koreans, they've made dramatic strides in the last few years, and maybe this is another one, this Bayek.
Well, just looking at his record, his best time's just over 2 hours 10, but he's not run many marathons. And he was 3rd in that race in the Seoul Marathon. That's number 8, Berg. Meanwhile, some miles ahead, Lisa Ondieki leading the women's race.
Very ahead.
Turning towards Tower Bridge. And on Tower Bridge, the 12-mile marker. We may be able to pick up the gap here now that's developed between the leading athletes. Perhaps be able to see them all through, but Liz McColgan looks to me to be closing. We were told she was 10 seconds behind, but I didn't believe that at the time. But she's certainly closer now.
You see it? See it?
And it's a great lift to any athlete when you've been off the pace, but you've got it right and you're pulling the leader back. Actually, when we're on the tower, we can probably take the first half dozen through. That's the buggy. It precedes the leading woman, sitting on Dieke's feet. So it's McColgan in 2nd place. And I wonder if Andrea Wallace has been caught and passed by Dora, the defending champion. Oh, and McColgan's catching very quickly. There's no question about it. For an experienced athlete, actually, the change of pace by Ondieki was quite dramatic. And she may be paying a little price for it at the moment. 12 miles. 66 minutes, 17 seconds. The last mile, 5:43, so she slowed a little bit. And McColgan now, what, she looks some 20 to 25 metres behind. That's the 12-mile marker for her. Actually, if we can stay with this shot and just watch them go through, just checking on the difference there. 6 to 7 seconds. And we'll just now pick up the leading half dozen, and Dora and Wallace are together now. 1st and 3rd last year, Dora the German. And she's obviously running on the watch, taking careful note of each mile time, and very much an even pace runner. Plans her races that way. And when you look at her record, very effective. Andrea Wallace there. It's gone through a bad patch, but she's now in 4th place. We look back, we may be able to pick up the other athletes who are in this leading half dozen. But certainly the leading 4 have broken right away. A bit early to say that we've got a race for 1st and 2nd and a race for 2nd and 3rd, because they're not halfway yet. Lorraine Moller is 106, 105 is Krakowska of Poland, who was 2nd last year, and 109 is Rybicka of Poland.
Well, I think there's going to be some changes in the leading positions in the women's marathon. Dora's running strongly. You could see how quickly she went past Andrea Wallace and moved into 3rd place. Lisa Ondigi has laid down her statement. She's trying to win this from before halfway. Liz McColgan slowly closing her down, and Catherine Dora, I believe, closing down on both Lisa Ondigi and Liz McColgan. Liz McColgan, don't forget, is running about 3 minutes faster than she's run in her previous 2 marathons, and Lisa Ondigi is running almost as fast as she's ever run before.
What a contrast we've got here, the leader alone in the women's marathon, and meanwhile back at Cutty Sark, between 6 and 7 miles, they're absolutely packed, running shoulder to shoulder, just approaching Cutty Sark here. People looking for personal best times, people running for charity. And in fact, among these runners, we've got quite a number. I'll tell you about that in just a moment.
Like the men passed over Tower Bridge some 6 or 7 minutes ago. Now we have the 3 leading women competitors. Chris, this is turning out to be a great race as well, and rather like the men's last year, it could be a very tight finish.
Yeah, we've got, it looks like Dougie Gray in front, actually. He's pulling the women along. It looks like Rose Hill in behind from Milton Keynes and Lily Ongare. I think these 2 girls have worked together, and maybe they've dropped Tanny Gray. I can't see Tanny. It looks like a 2-horse race at the moment.
Back with the runners. Actually, I've just been checking. There's over 10,000 first-time runners in this men and women's events. But to complete what I was trying to say before, I've had 1 or 2 letters. We can't actually look for individual numbers. They're impossible to find. But a number of people who were followers of Bobby Moore fans, who died recently of cancer, have taken out extra sponsorship for the Marie Curie Cancer Fund in memory of Bobby Moore. Incidentally, there are some 100 runners here taking part for the Sportsaid Foundation, which has helped so many international athletes over the years. And of course, there are some 70 running for the Ron Pickering Memorial Fund.
Well, we say there are 60 nominated charities, but there are surely thousands more, and the SOS sign there meaning we want to restore, we want to preserve this remarkable ship, the Cutty Sark. Thousands of charities and thousands of different ways of raising money for them. I mean, obviously a lot of athletes are sponsored per mile. Some will individually literally run and raise thousands upon thousands of pounds.
Lisa Ondigi. She's been going through 12 miles in 66 minutes, 16 seconds. Can't be far off the halfway stage now.
Well, the miles over the last 3 or 4 miles have been a little bit erratic, but she now looks as though she's settled down. She's just gone through 13 miles, 1 hour 11 and 41 minutes, so that's going to be halfway in 1 hour 12, which is what we were saying. It's 2 hours 24 pace they're running at, almost as fast as she's ever run before. Liz McColgan now working in 2nd place, working hard to close that gap. And closing the gap is a real pressure point. Liz has really got to work just a little bit harder, just a few seconds each mile to close the gap and then get alongside Lisa Ondigi, and then the real race will commence. But Liz looks full of concentration. She looks full of running. She knows that she's got the halfway 1 hour 12 minutes and 18 seconds, which is 3 minutes faster than Liz McColgan's ever run before. That's about 10 seconds a mile faster than she's run before in her 2 previous marathons. So she's never been here before, but she's an experienced distance runner. She feels as though the marathon will eventually be her greatest distance, and she's a novice at the event, having run 2 and won 2. And she looks composed. I notice every so often she lifts her head, just raises her eyes, looks down the road, looks at the job in hand, and the job in hand is to close that gap. And then the pressure would be different. Lisa Undiki in the driving seat, a few yards ahead of McColgan in the chasing position, but if she could close the gap, then that would be a psychological boost for Liz McColgan and a bit of a blow for Lisa Undiki.
Confirmation of the mile times. And actually you see between 12 and 13, Undiki speeded up again, aware possibly McColgan was closing the gap. And of course, McColgan was clearly being lifted by the fact she was closing the gap, but it's heartbreaking when somebody starts to accelerate away again.
That's right, the battle's taking place about 50 or 60 yards apart. It would be easier to observe, and you could maybe give some better guidance on what's exactly happening if they were a bit closer together, but there's 2 separate races being run. There's 2 psychological battles going on. There's a psychological battle with themselves, and then there's the battle of can you close the gap. And Liz McColgan looks intent on closing that gap. She's chasing. She's in a good position. She's not too far behind. But I think Dora, just having seen her just put in the back of the shot, is closing on both of them.
Well, in the men's race, they've just gone through 10 miles in 48 minutes, 41 seconds. And the slowest mile of the race there, between 9 and 10, just over 5 minutes, 5:2. Still O'Reilly, the pacemaker, leading. Betty Ol of Italy in second place. Number 8 in third place is Beak of Korea. As we go back through the field, and Sala there, Garcia of Mexico. Number 32, who went through there, is Ruiz, is rather Bjorkley of Norway. Eamon Martin staying with this well in his first marathon. But the test for him will come around the 20-mile marker.
Actually, Eamon should be feeling good here at this pace. He'll be comfortable. He'll have run a lot faster in training. He'll have run a lot faster in races. Certainly has at the shorter distances. And I'm pleased he's off the front. I'm pleased he's just settling in the middle of the group. But already we can say there's a big shock happening in this race, in the men's race for Great Britain. Paul Evans is completely out of it. We've looked down the field, we can't see him at all. He's already one of our selections for the World Championships in Stuttgart later this year. He was our leading marathon runner in the Olympics, in the this event last year, and he was our leading 10,000 meter runner in the Olympic Games last year, and he's gone completely with all the preparation that he's done, supposedly one of the favourites, and just out of contention in this race.
Let's see, Paul Evans, we hope, maybe just hidden in there somewhere. He's wearing number 15, but it doesn't look as if he's there. O'Reilly, Bettiol, Martin, Garcia, the Mexican, Steve Brace. On the outside is Sala. These women in the elite group started some 25 minutes before the men. 32, running the race of his life, is Bjorkley of Norway. Best time previously, 2 hours 13. He's way inside that. But it's a good solid piece of pacemaking by O'Reilly. Garcia's never been far away from the lead. Wearing number 4. The Mexican, whose last season best time was 2 hours 9 minutes 16 seconds. So he's very useful indeed. He won the Rotterdam Marathon last year. Meanwhile, a long way ahead in the wheelchair event.
Heading towards Canary Wharf, George Van Damme, Belgium again, and Ivan Newman still chasing. We know that much. So England in second place at the moment, but the Belgians got a good lead.
Yeah, it's impressive pushing at the moment. He's just hitting it all the time, hitting the push ring. Normally you see guys hit it about 4 or 5 times and coast a bit. The guy is absolutely pushing like a train, and it's into a headwind as well. I just can't believe it. The course record is going to be smashed.
He's certainly looking very powerful. But what about this wheelchair there? He's sitting on something which is rather different to a normal wheelchair. It's very light, it's very strong, and he's making it look very, very powerful indeed. He's obviously got a long lead over Ivan Newman, and we're watching out for Ivan Newman all the time, but we believe he is in second place. And 2 previous winners of this event, David Holding and Håkan Eriksson, they're in 3rd and 4th. So England up there in the front 4 at the moment. And here's your man.
Yes, Ivan, he's probably about 40 seconds behind. He's out there on his own. It must be tough for him. He knows that the 2 guys behind are going to chase him. It might be advantageous for David Holding and Håkan to catch him, and the 3 of them to work together like in cycling to try and catch George. But he's looking good, Ivan. You're talking about the chairs earlier on. They're on about £1,500 for these chairs. They're unbelievable. You're looking at 700 quid's worth of wheels on Ivan's chair there.
Oh, a dramatic shot there of the course, and things are happening in the women's race because the gap is now down to 3 seconds between Ondi Iki and Liz McColgan. It's closed quite quickly, whether it's Ondi Iki slowing or Liz McColgan just speeding up. But look at the determination. You can actually see it in the aggressive attitude of her running.
I think Lisa Ondigi knows that Liz McColgan's catching her, and she's suddenly begun to relax, and maybe she's thinking, I'll let her catch me. But Liz McColgan's working there to catch her. She's getting tremendous support on the side of the road. Her run in the World Championships last 1991 was such a popular victory, our only victory in that World Championship. So everyone knows Liz McColgan in London. They're really cheering her, and I would think that's to her advantage. And this is to her advantage. If she can just make those 3 seconds into an equal term, then she gains the ascendancy. And in the second part of the race, past halfway, they've gone 14 miles in 1 hour and 17 minutes. That last mile wasn't slow, 5:28, so Liz must have run a little bit faster than that to close it down from 10 to 3 seconds. She looks relaxed, she looks full of running, she looks strong, and now step 1, catch Lisa Ondigi. She's got to do that.
McColgan is looking quite impressive and very strong at the moment. But actually, having got within 3 seconds, can't just absolutely get there yet. It's very, very, very difficult psychological moment for a leader to be caught like this. And if McColgan can get there, put the pressure on, or just lob alongside her for a mile or two, well, Ondi Iki will be wondering about her ability to stay on.
It must be a little bit frustrating, that gap of 3 seconds, but the thing about it with Liz is she's got to do it gradually. There's no point in just accelerating quickly. Lisa Ondigi looked over her shoulder, she heard a noise. It was a wheelchair, actually. It wasn't Liz McColgan.
And just while Lisa Ondigi there and Liz McColgan are having a tremendous tussle, Lily Angre of Germany, the fastest woman in the field in the wheelchair race, has just gone past them. Now, not only is she the fastest athlete in the women's race, she's also the 12th fastest overall, and that makes her some athlete.
Canary Wharf there on the Isle of Dogs, but a long, long way, but that's about 10 miles back at Cuddy Sark. Just a word about someone not running this year. In fact, he's run many London marathons and run them well too. Lenny Bennett, the comedian, who's in hospital with a suspected heart problem. I hope he's well enough to watch, and perhaps well enough to make a comeback.
I know there's two competitors out there, David, who you've met and commentated on many times before, Graham Gooch and Phil Neal of Liverpool in England. I just wonder how they're getting on and whether they're suffering.
Almost impossible to spot them. Well, there's the leading car for the men's race at Tower Bridge, approaching 12 miles, so we'll be able to check the placings back through the field. Five-minute mile, the last one. Those are the two slowest miles of the race, the last two. And the leading men now in sight. Garcia, number 4, looks to be the new leader, unless O'Reilly is hidden by the float. That's Garcia, Bayak of Korea, Vettiol of Italy. They're the leading three. We'll pick up the others in just a moment. Last mile, the slowest so far, 5:04. Garcia of Mexico, Bayak of Korea, Bettiol of Italy, then Eamon Martin of Great Britain. And number 2 is Sala. Also there is Shahanga. Number 25 is Gadzius of Poland. 17, Shahanga just going through. Or it's Makali, rather, of Lesotho. Shahango's dropped off that leading group. Number 33 is Vasaghi of Italy. Makali of Lesotho. Pretty useful. He's running inside 2 hours 11, but in fact, he's running about 2 minutes and he's faster than ever before. It's number 17. Looking back now at some of the group behind the leaders. 16 is Phil Ho of Brazil, 61 is Globo of South Africa, Gonzalez of Spain in that group, and McLaughlin of Liverpool and Pembroke. And Paul Davis-Hale is with them. I'm not quite sure. I think I recognise him, he's slightly hidden.
Paul Davis-Hale there, number 22 in the blue vest, represented Great Britain in the Olympic Games last year and was disappointed by his run. Martin McLaughlin in the red and white vest next to him, number 62. He's running a good race, as he often does. He's a consistent marathon runner. And looking further down the field, you can see the gaps in the men's race, even at this point, are quite substantial.
So, out on the Isle of Dogs, Canary Wharf, 800 feet above the runners, and the leading two still on Diiki and Liz McColgan, still that irritating gap. Well, the last 3 miles have been very, very even indeed, 5:25, 5:28, 5:27.
And this pace bring them home out just outside 2 hours 24 minutes if they were consistent all the way to the finish. But the breeze now, depends which way the breeze is blowing as they run along the river and approach back to the city. The gap is, as you said, David, is a frustrating one because it's close enough to be extremely visible all the time, but it's far enough just for not to be able to happen. Lisa Rondigi is very sensitive about that, glancing over her shoulder, knows what's happening behind, and is happy to run at this pace. She's run this time, she's run fast as this before. As I've said a few times, Liz McColgan is travelling about 8 or 10 seconds per mile faster than she's done in her previous 2 marathons.
And actually, we're wondering about Dora, who won the race last year, the German. She's run a much more even pace race. The last we saw of her, she was trying to get away. There she is. That her? I'm not quite sure if that's a runner or not, but I think it is. And if that is Dora, she's made a dramatic improvement. Still a 3-second gap there for Liz McColgan. But the interesting athlete now is Dora.
Well, I think Lisa Ondiiki's just relaxed a little bit there, just looking over her shoulder, just literally relaxing. And I think she's going to allow Liz McColgan to catch her. This is a tactic on her part. Rather than have the chase happen, she's slowing, relaxing, and saying to McColgan, come on then, come alongside me if you want. And it's a serious gesture on her part. And there's the third runner, Katrin Dora of Germany, who set off gradually, increased the pace, just did it steadily, and did so. And now in Canary Wharf, there's two of them almost together.
Well, this is a very important part of the race now. Will Liz McColgan take a breather when she gets there, or will she keep the pressure on? And Ondiiki not looking too happy at the moment. She's certainly relaxed a great deal, probably thinking that she needs some help, but that last mile slowed very, very much indeed. 6 minutes. No wonder McColgan caught her. I'm just wondering though, Brendan, if there's a lot more wind out there than we know.
I'm sure there is. You can see the trees blowing a little, and you can see their hair, Liz McColgan's hair is really brushed back. And Lisa Ondiiki decided that she was going to let McColgan catch her. There's no question about that at all. And now she's sitting in behind her, niggling away at McColgan, who's now bent into the wind, leading. And Lisa Ondiiki's playing a game. I bet there hasn't been a word exchanged there. I bet Ondiiki didn't say a thing. And now she's beginning to think about pressuring McColgan.
One or two people will be reflecting on the fact these two don't talk to each other very much anyway, but they're certainly not going to be talking at this stage. Liz looks as if it's hurting a little bit, and I suspect the wind, particularly in this stretch, is right against them.
Well, it suggests it's coming against them when they head towards the city, which is most of the next 6 miles are working their way back from the Isle of Dogs and Canary Wharf towards the city as they go under the underpass here, slightly downhill. Not a glance, not a word, not a glance. And Lisa Ondiiki is beginning, I think, to play games with McColgan. That was an unusual move. She had an advantage, and she decided that she wasn't just going to try and press home the advantage. She was going to come and let McColgan take it to her. Well, Liz is an experienced track runner. She's an experienced road runner, but she's not an experienced marathon runner.
Work out how far Dora is back. It's Dora, but still we've no idea of the time gap, but she's looking, as she always does, very, very strong indeed.
Well, if you look from where Dora was there, you could see the women's lead car, and she isn't far behind at all. And if these two play games with one another, rather than battle on, then you'll see Katrin Dora close the gap. With that 6-minute mile, I'm sure she would have closed substantially in that previous mile. There's the lead car, there's McColgan and Ondiiki, and just coming into shot, you can sense Katrin Dora is moving through, running strongly and gaining tremendously renewed confidence from the fact that she can see the leading two.
I just took the time gap there, and she's less than 15 seconds behind, and she's certainly run more economically. And you do pay in distance races for changes of pace, and Dora clearly settled for the fact the early pace was too fast, and then was not unsettled by the changes of pace, ran her own race, continually glancing at the watch to make sure she was running an even pace.
She certainly has been running an even pace, and at one point she was 55 seconds behind the two of them. Now she's less than 15 seconds behind them, and she's running smoothly. She won this race last year. She's a winner. She wins lots of her marathon races, and I think Lisa Ondiiki playing games with Liz McColgan there, allowing her to catch her. Maybe the two of them are working to the advantage of Katrin Dora, who's in third place. So we're getting the clash of the giants as we expected, but also we're getting a race coming for third place, or from third place, with Katrin Dora too.
Oh, well, you look at Dora's background, it's worth re-emphasising her pedigree. The winner here last year, but 24 marathons and she won 15 of them. I wonder if these two are aware of the danger behind them. Oh, back with the men's race now, and the break is on. That's Bettiol of Italy leading. Bayek of Korea in second place. In third place is Eamon Martin. Number 2 is Saleh of Djibouti, the fastest man in the field, now 37 though. Number 17 just behind him, Mukhali of Lesotho. And number 25 in there is Gadjus of Poland, just out of the shot. So that leading group now beginning to sort them out. And Eamon Martin in his first ever marathon.
Well, and they've gone through halfway in the men's marathon in 1 hour and 4 minutes, which is exactly what the pacemaker was asked to do. 2 hours pace for the first half of the race. Eamon Martin running a great race in there. At this point of the race, he'll still be feeling comfortable because he's an experienced distance runner. He's run a good half marathon, and we'll find out in the next couple of miles whether the transition for the British 10,000 metre record holder, Eamon Martin, from 10,000 metres to the marathon has been a successful one. His coach Mel Batty has spent a lot of time talking to Ron Hill, one of our all-time great marathon runners, about the preparation from the marathon. He's done the long runs, he's run for 2.5 hours, so he's got the miles in his legs. He ran quite well in the World Cross Country Championships. He ran a good half marathon recently, and well, he doesn't know what's going to happen to him in the next 13 miles. We don't know, but certainly his preparation, he's fit enough, he's got himself here, but he's surrounded by some good class marathon runners. Right next to him being the second fastest marathon runner of all time, Saleh of Djibouti. Bayek of Korea just ahead of him, and Bettiol, who was 5th in the Olympic Games in the marathon, in the lead. And the race really now is getting serious. It's very competitive here, and this is going to be a good battle all the way to the finish.
Eamon Martin content to let the others do the work, and quite rightly so. Bettiol, though, his background is very strong indeed. He's now 31. He was 6th in the World Championship in 91. 5th, as Brendan was saying, in the Olympic Games in those awful conditions in Barcelona last year on one of the worst marathon courses we've ever seen, in the sense it was the toughest. That was a very good run indeed. And he's run over London twice before. He was 10th in 91, but 2nd in 1990. Back with the women's race, and we've really got a race on now. Dora's tactics have paid off. She's back with them.
Well, at this point in the race, you've got to say that Katrin Dora has got to this point of the race much more efficiently than the other two. Lisa Ondieki be a little bit surprised to see another, and there goes Dora. She's settled in a pace. She's decided to continue running at that pace. She's gone straight past the two of them, and that's the best thing to do. Lisa Ondieki slowing down earlier for McColgan, cost herself about 30 seconds in that mile when she waited for Liz McColgan. The personal battle between them maybe has obsessed the two of them a little bit more than it should have been, because there was always going to be a challenge from Katrin Dora, the winner of last year's race, and an outstanding performance by her in Barcelona too. She was 5th in Barcelona in the Olympic Games in those difficult conditions, and she looks sprightly, she looks good there. Lisa Ondieki may be a little relieved that there's someone going to take it from them. And I'm just looking behind, you can see the trees are blowing, you can see there's a bit of a wind. We will find out exactly which direction the wind's blowing when they come along the side of the river. And Liz McColgan there in 2nd place. So the race we expected with one extra customer, Katrin Dora.
All three had babies in recent years. 1990, Liz McColgan and Ondieki just a month apart. And Dora became a mother in 89, a year before. Remember, Liz McColgan was training, I believe, until a fortnight before her baby was born. and back in action less than a month after the birth of her daughter.
Tanni Gray, who we think is in third place in the women's race overall. And Tanni started off remarkably quickly, but could be just struggling a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, what happened? Lily Ongre put a break in. I think Rose Hill covered it, left Tanni by a while, and it looks like Lily Ongre is out in front. Rose is second, and looks like Tanni's suffering a little bit there. The technique slowed down a little bit, and you're looking at a headwind there. And because she's a light person, she's really suffering into the headwind.
Well, several miles behind, still they're going through, approaching Cutty Sark. That's 6 to 7 miles. Actually, they follow the line of the Thames, the athletes, although they rarely see the actual river itself. But you could call the Thames almost the running rail for the London Marathon. Well, this is the race that was promised. Andrea Wallace made that bid to stay with McColgan and Ondieki. She's paid for it. But Dora looks very composed.
She certainly does. I mean, the last couple of miles, 6 minutes there, and 5:48. They're the mile times for Liz McColgan and Lisa Ondieki. And obviously Dora has been running a lot faster than that for the last 3 miles. She's in the rhythm of running a bit quicker than 5:40. She's probably running about 5:35 or something like that. And she's decided to keep that going. So now we've got a battle between the three of them. And it's a case of Katrin Dora, who's come through gradually and come through completely. Lisa Ondieki, who's away and looked at times that she maybe had a winning lead, but then McColgan closed her down and she finally allowed McColgan to move alongside her. And now Katrin Dora, by far the most experienced runner, Olympic medalist. Ondieki second in the 1988 Seoul Olympics in the marathon. Liz McColgan second in those 10,000 meters in those Olympic Games. And the three of them, three of the world's leading distance runners. And this London Marathon has already, the female race, has been won by many of the world's leading distance runners. Christensen set a world record here. Greta Weitz won here. Rosa Mota won here. And it's going to be another great runner who puts her name on the women's title for the London Marathon. And then fourth place, Andrea Wallace, settling down in fourth place now. And hopefully she can stay there.
Well, meanwhile, in the men's race, Bettiol of Italy is making his bid, pushing away. Eamon Martin's finding it hard there. Alongside him is Beek of Korea. And Gadges of Poland in the all red, but certainly Bettiol, one of the most experienced of the leaders there, pushing hard. Beek, we believe, in his second marathon only. Eamon Martin there in his first. Gadges of Poland. He's running way faster than he's ever done before. His best time is about 2 hours 12 and a half minutes. Looking back to see if there's any danger behind him, which is a sign of an athlete who's finding it hard. Just behind him is Sala.
That's George Van Dam of Belgium, and we're looking out closely here for Ivan Newman, because the last time we saw these two competitors, it certainly looked as though Ivan was catching up the Belgian.
Yeah, they were about 40 seconds behind, but looking at that shot, I think the gaps come up a bit. I was looking at the time. He's there at the tower about 4 minutes quicker than I expected, so we're probably looking at a course record of about 5 minutes faster than last year's 1:51.
Well, the course record 1:51.42, and that was set by Daniel Wesley. Now, Daniel Wesley featured up until about 3 miles, but he's been dropped from the field now. So George Van Dam of Belgium and Ivan Thompson, they're the two leading contenders at the moment.
Interesting shot there. They're beyond 22 miles below the Tower as they go through the Tower of London itself. And on Tower Bridge, you saw the runners going over above them. They're at 12 miles.
That really must be a desperate situation for the people just coming through 12 miles, and that situation will get worse when they start to see the runners go underneath the bridge as well. But let's take a closer look at George Van Dam. He set out from about 6 miles on his own, and he's stayed there ever since.
Yeah, his technique's looking good. The trouble with the carpet is it will slow right down. If you get onto the cobbles, you're a bit faster, but you get thrown everywhere. You notice that he's got his legs tucked underneath for an aerodynamic position. What you're looking down is to cut down the wind resistance. He's in this aero tuck position. Barcelona Marathon last year, he got 12th. He's been coming through the ranks over the last few years. He's got a best marathon time from Sampec last year, 16 seconds behind Will Reckon. Here we have Ivan Newman. Well, he must be less than a minute behind, and this is going to be a terrific finish. Ivan's looking good. When he starts pushing, that is. He's just going around the corner now. He isn't going as fast as George. He isn't going as fast as George.
Now, you're his coach. What advice would you give to him now with about, 4 or 5 miles to go? He's got to make up that minute. What has he got to do?
Well, Ivan's forte is probably into the wind, and as soon as he gets on the good road surface and starts rolling, then Ivan can maybe start pulling him back. He's a little bit heavier, and I know towards the end, especially on the mile, which is good road surface, he might be able to pull him back a bit. The finish is uphill on the bridge, and it won't suit Ivan. So even if he catches him before the bridge, I very much doubt if he can take him at the end.
Back with the men's race now. They've just gone through 16 miles. Bettiol of Italy there, Beck of Korea. Bettiol really attacking, forcing the pace. Beck looks very relaxed. Eamon Martin now looking quite comfortable still in his first marathon. And Gagius of Poland. Those 4 clear. But still, remember, 10 miles to go. And what a testing 10 miles that's going to be. And what a daunting thought it must be if you allow yourself to think about it.
I think the secret is not to, David. But I think Eamon Martin's preparation and training will certainly get him to 20 miles. He looks strong here, and it's beyond 20 miles that he doesn't know, his coach Mel Batty doesn't know, nobody knows how the body reacts when it runs out of energy. And whether this preparation has been sufficient, we'll only be able to tell in about 20 or 30 minutes time. But he looks as though he's got this part of the race right, but Bettiol, Bayek are forcing the pace. Eamon in 3rd place there.
Eamon will be given a terrific lift by these spectators out there. Every marathon runner you ever talk to talks about the crowd in the London and how much help they get from them. But certainly with a Briton in the first 4, they'll be favouring Eamon Martin undoubtedly. Well, now in the women's race, Dora is dictating. Actually, we've been trying to check because both Brendan and I have been concerned to get news about the wind, and apparently it is very strong out there, swirling around. But it's very unsettling. Well, Dollar's trying to force it, but Ondieki and McColgan happy to go along with it.
Well, that's right, and Dora running at the pace that she's running at all the way, looking strong. Liz McColgan had a mid-race crisis when she was 10 seconds behind what looked like a winning bid by Lisa Ondieki. And then Lisa Ondieki allowed McColgan to catch her, played a game with McColgan. The idea of times has completely gone out of the window now. It's a race for first, it's a battle for first, and it's going to be a great, exciting battle for first.
Oh, Brandon, there was an interesting situation at a press conference the other day where there was Sala and Garcia and Dora. And, of course, a lot of the questions being asked of Dora were not about her form. They were all about Liz McColgan and Ondieki. And I just wonder whether this lack of attention and this lack of pressure that's been placed on the defending champion could pay off in the end.
Well, certainly the week's press has been dominated by the hate battle, apparently the hate battle, between Liz McColgan and Lisa Ondieki. I think it's been slightly manufactured. I'm sure they both respect one another much more as distance runners and marathon runners, as seems apparent. But that doesn't matter now. That's behind them. That's in the newspapers. That doesn't affect how you run in a marathon. They both control their nerves. They both control their positions. Lisa Ondigi, I thought, would have struck on there when she was 10 seconds clear, but she's all about winning now, and she's in a good position. It's windy out there. The wind's in their face at points of the race as they go back towards the city. And the point about that is, in third place, sheltering there is the right place to be. We're looking for the fourth woman now, and we hope and we still think that it's Andrea Wallace, who went very confidently, very aggressively, at a very fast pace for the first 10 miles or so with the leaders, McColgan and Ondiki. And we're still looking. She's a long way behind, but we still think it's Andrea Wallace in fourth place. The lead men have just gone through 17 miles, and Eamon Martin is still in that group as we look over the new reconstructed Docklands area. And there's the fourth woman, and it is Andrea Wallace. She's had a lonely run since about 8 miles. She's been on her own for that period, and it's all about her battling against herself. The preparation she's done has obviously got her in good shape for this race. Her confidence was extremely high, as she demonstrated by going with the big guns. And she's now settling down, running at her pace, running strongly, and I think she's got to work at it because she didn't enjoy the last 3 miles this year, and psychologically she's got to try and overcome that battle.
Back with the leading men, and still the four locked together. Eamon Martin tracking Bettiol, the Italian leader. Beek, who's looked very comfortable, the Korean, wearing number 8, and Gadges of Poland. And just looking back a bit, they've fairly well broken away from the fifth man. And the last time we saw the fifth man, it was Sala. In fact, it's not Sala now. May well be Garcia, but I can't quite see that, of Mexico. Interesting there, they've got a single file, and I wonder, Brendan, if that's because they're running into a headwind.
I'm sure that's the reason. I'm sure that's the best way to do it. And Bettiol is really he's a strong marathon runner. We've seen him do this many times before. Strong point of his race is from about now till about 22 miles, and he wants to win this race. You can tell he's working at it, he's pushing. But Bayek, as we said, the Koreans have got a new approach to the marathon. Eamon Martin running well there, and Gadges of Poland in fourth.
And they're also in single file, by the way, in the women's race. And McColgan is just struggling at the moment. Is forcing it. I could check on the mile times actually in the last few miles as to what they've been doing. 5:44, 46, trekking back 27. Well, the last two have been even, but that 5:27 must be when Dorrough is trying to apply the pressure, but certainly McColgan now is wavering slightly. She's got to get through this patch. In most distance races, you find yourself going through a period when you're under pressure. You can just survive that, the relief of it, and the well-being you feel, well, it puts you in the right frame of mind to attack again. But